Harry, thanks for the question. So, if you want to become a pilot in the UK and you're colourblind, is it possible? Well, to become a pilot, commercial pilot anyway in the UK, you need a Class 1 medical. Now, Class 1 medical, to get one of those, you need to meet all the requirements set out by the Civil Aviation Authority or the CAA. Now, when it comes to colour blindness, they do actually allow for minor colour defects. It's when it gets more severe, then that can potentially be a bit of an issue. So how do they test whether it's minor or quite severe? Well, you have to undergo what's called an Ishihara test. Ishihara test is basically the sort of splodges on a piece of paper that are different colour, and you have to be able to read the number within the splodges. Now, these are a set of, I believe, 24 different images, and you have to be able to get the first 15 correct. If you get the first 15 correct, absolutely fine, no issues at all. If you don't, then basically you'll have to undergo further testing with a specialist, and it's down to them whether or not it's going to impact the safety of the flight or not. Ultimately, that's what it comes down to, is your colour vision deficiency going to impact the safety of the flight? Now, I'm not an AME, so always check with an AME before you go ahead with anything, especially if you are concerned. Obviously, this information is correct, I believe, as of today, but the CAA could change the rules tomorrow. Who knows? So yeah, I hope this helps. Any other questions though, guys? Leave a comment or head over to pilothub.co.uk. SW Cheshire, thanks for the question. So cost index is essentially a trade-off between the cost of a flight and the flight time. So this will be a number. On the 737-800, it's anywhere between 0 and I believe 500. Other aircraft, I think the 75, it might be between 0 and 999 maybe, something like that. Basically, it sets essentially the cruising speed for the flight. So the lower the number, the slower the cruising speed, but the less fuel the aircraft uses, therefore the less cost to the airline. The higher the number, the faster the cruising speed, and therefore the more cost to the airline. Obviously, it's going to use more fuel. Obviously, like I said, it's a bit of a trade-off because obviously airlines want to get as many flights in as they can, so they want them to be as quick as possible. But obviously, at the same time, they want to try and save as much money as possible. So when it comes to flight planning, they will usually pick a number, usually more towards the cost-saving end, which obviously is a good compromise between the two. Yeah, I hope this answers your question, though. Any other questions, guys? Leave a comment or head over to pilothub.co.uk. British Airways 09, thanks for the question. So, do you need a PPL to become an airline pilot? Technically speaking, no, you don't. It depends what route you take for your training. If you take the modular route, where you'll do each license individually, one at a time, yes, you will need to do a PPL. It's the very first license you'll do. If, however, you go down the integrated route or the MPL route, you don't actually do a PPL at all. So with the integrated route, you go straight to your CPL, your commercial pilot's license, and the MPL is something different altogether. So whilst technically speaking, no, you don't need a PPL. If you do have a CPL or a full ATPL, then that includes all the privileges of the PPL anyway. So whilst technically you don't have one, you do, if that makes sense. But yeah, I hope this answers your question. Any other questions though, guys? Please leave a comment or head over to pilothub.co.uk. John Marley, thanks for the question. So, UPRT. UPRT is upset prevention and recovery training. An upset with an aircraft or an unusual attitude is when the aircraft is basically not where you want it to be and it's not under your normal control. This can happen for a number of reasons. So it could be due to wind shear, it could be due to a stall, loss of lift, anything. The whole point of UPRT, and the reason over the last few years the CAA have really been focusing on it a lot more, is it is really important to understand and recognise when the aircraft is in an upset state and how to recover from it, hence the name of the training. Now, obviously, this is really important because, obviously, if you don't recover correctly, you could very quickly find yourself losing altitude very quickly, as has happened in the past, which has caused a number of accidents, especially with light aircraft. And obviously, then these threats are even higher if you're flying at high altitude or in mountainous terrains and places like that. Yeah, so that's what it is basically. It's teaching you how to recover from an upset attitude, an unusual attitude. You'll do this as part of your initial training, and when you get into the airlines, you'll find you'll be doing this pretty much every single time you're in the sim. Pretty much every airline at the moment is really shit hot on UPRT, purely because it is so important to recognise. The last thing you want to be is not even noticing the speeds dropping off or the altitude starting to drop off. It's not a nice place to be. So yeah, I hope this answers your question. Any other questions though, guys, leave a comment or head over to pilothub.co.uk. Terry, thanks for the question. So, your CPL, once you've got your PPL, how do you go about getting your commercial pilot's license? Well, there's a few things that you need to, few requirements that you need to meet before you can carry out the training. So, first of all, you must have your Class 1 medical. Up till now, if you've only done your PPL, there's a chance you might only have your Class 2. From there, you'll need to have completed at least 150 hours of flight time before you can start the training. And you'll need about 200 hours of flight time and 100 hours solo before you can actually complete the test. And finally, you must have completed a number of the ATPL theory exams. So the ATPL theory exams you've got to complete. I am having to read these off a list because there's no way I'm remembering all these specific ones in my head. You need air law, aircraft general knowledge, mass and balance, performance, flight planning and monitoring, human performance, MET, Gen Nav, radio nav, operational procedures, principles of flight, and VFR comms. So that's pretty much most of them at that point. There are a few extra out there which you need to complete then if you want to continue to a frozen ATPL and do your instrument rating. But just for the CPL, those are the ones you need. Other than that, you're basically ready to go. Now, these only apply if you're doing the modular route. It is slightly different if you're going down the integrated route. The hours requirements a little bit different. But if you've already got a PPL, then it sounds like you're already on the modular route. So yeah, I hope this answers your question. Any other questions though, guys, leave a comment or head over to pilothub.co.uk. User2120, thanks for the question. So what are the work hours like? Now, this entirely depends on the airline that you fly for. So, for instance, back when I was with Ryanair, we had a fixed 5-4 roster. What this meant was I did 5 days on, 4 days off. So with the 4 days off, this could include weekends. Obviously, it used to alternate quite a lot because, it's 9 days and 7 days in a week. Pretty basic maths. So, yeah, it was quite fair like that, to be honest. My current airline's a little bit different. We have what's called a flexi roster, which means we can fly any day, basically, in any number of days. There are a few things put in place, but saying we can only fly up to 6 days in a row, things like that, which is a company-only sort of policy. But with that one, you will find that you fly a lot more weekends. It's very rare that you get weekends off. You have to usually bid for these, use them as annual leave, things like that. But honestly, it's not the end of the world. I quite enjoy not having weekends off, to be honest. It means when I am off in the week, everywhere's a lot quieter. The roads are a lot quieter. If I want to go out anywhere, it's a lot quieter. So yeah, it works out pretty well for me. But like I said, everybody's different and it's entirely down to the airline themselves. But I hope this answers your question. Any other questions, guys, leave a comment or head over to pilothub.co.uk. Jamie, thanks for the question. So you want to get into flying sort of part-time, just sort of casually, so you can do it alongside your current career. What options are out there? So in this case, the best thing to do is look at a local flying club. There's a number around. If you Google them in your area, you'll soon find them. Now, flying clubs, you'll get your PPL nice and cheap. They usually also rent the aircraft for quite cheap. There's even a number of not-for-profit clubs out there as well. Which basically, again, will rent the aircraft to you at cost price, which I'm not going to lie, is still going to be pricey. There's no doubt about it. It's just the way of the world. But it means that, you can just go out, enjoy the flying. What you will find with these flying clubs is they only tend to offer PPL training and nothing further, which is great if it's someone like yourself who just wants to do a bit of casual flying. Obviously, it's not so great for someone who wants to go work for the airlines one day. But yeah, 100% check out your local flying clubs. There's hundreds of them out there, and they are the best place to go. Even if you do plan on becoming a commercial pilot one day, and you're doing your hour building, again, a flying club is a great way to go and rent an aircraft nice and cheap. So yeah, I hope this answers your question. Any other questions, though, guys, leave a comment or head over to pilothub.co.uk. Zillion, thanks for the question. So, do us pilots tend to wave at each other on the taxiway? Honestly, it does tend to happen. More of just like a casual thing, a bit like in your car. If someone gives way to you, you might put your hand up and say thank you. It's essentially a little bit like that, if you've got two aircraft passing each other on a taxiway, or one's had to sort of hold and give way to another one pulling on. You do tend to give each other a little wave, or if you end up flying for the same company as the aircraft coming on again, just as a casual little wave to each other. But yeah, it does happen. Thanks for the question, though. Any other questions, guys? Leave a comment or head over to pilothub.co.uk.